Alright, so let's talk about Harvestella. This is Square Enix's take on the niche but pretty popular daily life farming simulator genre, some of which have a form of combat, this game included. Is there enough well implemented mechanics here, or did they stretch themselves out too thin? Let's get into the overall summary, going over a bit of the story, gameplay, and then my final thoughts on who I think should be picking this game up. Let's get into it. Harvestella was both developed and published by Square Enix. I want to thank them for the review copy, but all thoughts will be my own. Whether I like a game or not, I'll always be honest with you guys. It's available to play on Steam PC and Nintendo Switch, which is the version that I played. It's currently going for $59.99 US. To reiterate the kind of game this is so you can get a better overall picture, Harvestella is a farming simulator, daily life, anime-esque JRPG, open world sandbox. The story begins with your character, which you can slightly customize with gender, skin color, and voice tone. On the verge of passing out wandering the land, you are then rescued by the villagers of Leith, who explain that you've been affected by the Quietus. This is a plague that frequently withers away at all life that isn't protected by some special means. You have amnesia and have been entrusted with farmland just outside the town while you recoup. You soon learn that they are under constant threats of the Quietus and also have to deal with these futuristic beings that they call the omens. You soon befriend one of them who is in trouble, and that's the setup. Here's a quick overview of the gameplay loop. You're primarily going to be doing two things here. First is daily life farming, and the second is combat exploration. Let's start with the former. When not in the middle of certain story points, you're usually dealing with a constant day clock. You'll wake up at 6 a.m. and have to be in bed by 12 a.m. I'd say a full day lasts around 30 minutes or so if it's running constantly. The various seasons are just a month long, so about 30 days for spring, summer, fall, and winter. Within these days, you can do a variety of things, all of which aid to help you progress the story in one way or another. It's quite a lot of stuff, but here's some examples. Farming and tending to livestock to sell goods and cook food. Renovate your house to unlock different workstations like kitchens. Shop at stores for new recipes, materials, and permanent unlocks like inventory upgrading. Commission a blacksmith to increase your and your allies' weapons and similar stuff like that. Now for combat and exploration. The story and quests take you to many different places. These locations are usually dangerous and filled with monsters. Luckily, you are a natural fighter. You even wield a weapon that not only doubles as multiple farm tools, but can transform depending on your current equipped class. So a swordsman class fights with a sword, and mages fights with stabs, and so on. There's around 14 or so classes that unlock during the story and can be switched out at any time to have a loadout of 3 to flow between in combat encounters. You have a basic attack and skills that simply just use a cooldown timer. Enemies have weakness to certain weapons and elements. You can even break them with multiple weaknesses, which increase their damage received. You will also be meeting and teaming up with allies who help in combat. They provide passive buffs and have their own playstyles. If knocked out, they simply get back up after a short time, so you're free to focus on your own plays here. Enemies have various power levels, drop items, and provide experience points, so you can level up and increase your damage, your HP, and your defense. So that's Harvestella in a nutshell. Now it's time for my pros and cons and my overall thoughts on if this game's worth your time and money. With this game being in the genre that it is, these titles tend to sometimes stretch themselves out too thin with tons of mechanics, and it ends up being a quantity over quality situation. Unfortunately, Harvestella is just that. I'll start with the good stuff. The story here is actually pretty interesting. I was expecting just a simple amnesia plot isekai, But the story goes to some unexpected places with the addition of these omen individuals who are from a different time. They have a very advanced technology and appear here in this timeline, and it's unclear whether they're there to stop or enable destruction. The graphics and music are on par with Square Enix expectations. This isn't first party quality, but it's far better than other games in this space. I played the Switch version, and while it did run decently, it tends to drop often in some of the simplest places, such as your farm, and that's not a good thing, considering the farm is where you're spending the majority of your playtime. Didn't get a chance to try out the Steam version, but I have to assume that it at least runs pretty steady there. Alright, now, time for the issues. Okay, absolutely Harvestella should be categorized as a daily life farming simulator with combat elements, but wow, some of the parts here just feel so shallow. Let's start with the daily life stuff. With titles that have come before this, such as Harvest Moon, Stardew Valley, and Rune Factory, we've come to expect a certain degree of NPC relationship building and interaction. In here, you don't really have a town where you know each and every individual. There are key NPCs like the nurse and mayor running around that provide some dialogue, but for the most part, it's littered with generic, nameless people, middle-aged man, young girl, etc. There's no schedules to learn, no likes or dislikes, daily gift giving, your birthdays. It's pretty bare. At least your allies kind of have a relationship progression meter, but even that feels lacking. It's based solely on story events and not daily interaction stuff. And the farming is decent, but not as robust as it should be. They got all the basics down, like sowing, watering, livestock, material gathering. But here's my problem with this. None of it actually improves your character significantly in any way. It's primarily there just to make money and cook food. And yeah, while that is important, you might as well just replace the whole mechanic with a constant monster loot to do the same thing. Farming here just seems like a chore. It should be a part of your character that grows and progresses as you do. It needs to be customizable and intertwined with all of the other mechanics. At the end of the day, it just kind of feels tacked on to a JRPG. I honestly would have been completely fine with this level of farming and daily life, but they did not nail the combat here. It's got some cool ideas like class changing, weakness exploiting, and even mini-boss monsters that roam the map, but overall it just feels way too clunky, stagnant, and kind of limiting. There's no universal dodge or anything like that. It's, tied to a specific class and that makes all the other classes inherently much weaker, as there's not many other ways to deal with enemy attacks than running away after your very slow animation attacks. If you go on the offensive, you're almost guaranteed to trade blows. It just feels very simplistic. Now, Stardew Valley and Rune Factory have a simple combat system, and some might say it's even more simplistic than Harvestella and the mechanics, but at least those games, combat was not the focus here, and instead the daily life, relationships, and farming were way more fun and engaging. Harvestella seems to fail and lack in all of that. I really hate to say that, but it's just how I feel about this game. The best parts of Harvestella seem to be the story progression though. It just sucks that it made me feel like I wanted to just get through all the chores of farming and buying and selling and gathering so I could just run to the next pre-made dungeon and get to the next cutscene. The ideal scenario here would have been to enjoy the complete gameplay loop. It's kind of like I'm playing a JRPG and they just tacked on a bunch of extra stuff. I know some of you watching love this game to death, and that's completely fine. It looks good, sounds good, but it's overall pretty shallow. Maybe I just have a higher standard because I have played so many of these different types of game before, and this is coming from Square Enix themselves. Maybe I expected more, especially for $59.99. That is a huge asking price. Now, going off script here, I was streaming this the other day, and someone came in the chat and they asked me, "Hey Mobby, should I get Harvestella or God of War? They're both $59.99." And oh my god, I had to like explain to him, don't get this game for this price. Get God of War. That game's gonna be 9/10 out of 10s. Harvestella, you can definitely wait on that. To be honest, if you really did want to pick this game up, I'd say wait for a sale or try out the free demo. Maybe getting it around $20 to $30 max. I think that is the most you should pay for this game. But overall, who is the game for? Stardew and Rune Factory fans? I'd say worth a try. It's not the worst game in the world, and you'll enjoy it, but definitely miss out on some of the more in-depth mechanics we're used to here. How about casual farming sim fans? 50-50 on that. The farming is heavily lacking here. How about JRPG fans? Surprisingly, I think they'd have more fun here than the other sort of gamers I've mentioned here. The story is good enough, and if you take the farming and progression mechanic very lightly here as more of a backdrop than a major feature, then you have a decently average hack and slash game. So, and that's Harvestella. If you guys enjoyed, please leave a like, it helps a lot. And if you haven't already subscribed for daily videos, please let me know down in the description, what do you guys think of Harvestella? Do you agree with this review, or, you know, try to sell us on it? Maybe there's more things we're not seeing here I would like to know. Also, if you want to see the gameplay, I'm uploading it all on my Let's Play channel and live streaming on Twitch. All links are in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.